Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. I would like to just pick up on something, Minister, I think you mentioned either yesterday or earlier today. The targets for home solar installation, and if we need to tie this to a piece of the business plan, we can talk about key strategy 1.1, and there's a bunch of bullet points there. I think this fits quite well under. I think it was right near the end of yesterday. You said that about 550 so far home solar installations have happened under the that relevant program.
Yeah, it's possible that that also includes some of the commercial installations. Let me just find the
sure. While you do that,
I'll ask your question.
I'll just What I'm curious about is I understand there's a goal of 10,000 home solar installations through the life of the program. Is that correct?
Through a number of the programs. So we have the municipal piece, we have the school piece, and then we have the residential, commercial, and then we have the farm piece and the Indigenous piece.
Okay. So it'd be good to know if the collective or the holistic goal is 10,000 installations through all of those programs. Would like to know how many have been done to date. How long that program is set to run for, and I guess what I'm curious about is how many do we anticipate needing per year going forward to meet that 10,000 target, and if in fact we're close, kind of where we are on that trajectory, and whether in fact we're likely to hit that goal.
Thank you for the question, and it's I'm going to take a moment here to find the right pieces. People are giving me paper. All right. Actually, we have a little bit more updated information here. So right now, for the residential and commercial solar program, we have, for the period ending March 26th, 2018, so this is pretty new, we have 5,000 kilowatts installed capacity, and we have 725, actually, projects verified at this point, for a total amount of 3.3 million in rebate amounts paid so far. The program itself, I believe, is a $48 million allocation over 2 years. We know that there are a number of projects in the queue now that people are making decisions based on pace and other things. The Municipal Climate Action Center, as I said, the farm solar, those numbers are contained elsewhere. This is specific to the residential and commercial solar program.
725 is residential and commercial combined?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and that 48 million is over 2 years of this fiscal and next, 18, 19, and 19, 20, or 17, 18, 18, 19? 48 million. Is it last year, this year, or this year?
It's over 2 calendar years, as I understand it. In fact, if there's more questions around this, I will get the CEO of the Energy Efficiency Agency to give you the most updated numbers.
Sure, I appreciate that. I guess where I'm really going with this is, again, I certainly would be on board with the goal of increasing solar installations, and I'm interested to see how the new property tax program kind of factors in, and exactly how much uptake that drives. But I'm just curious, if the goal is 10,000 and we're still less than 1,000, at least 1 year, it looks like at least a year in, I'm just curious what you feel is going to change in the next 12 to 24 months to get us, up over that hump.
Well, first, the commercial projects are often quite a bit larger. So, for example, the project at Simons on Londonderry Mall is massive. It's I think it's the largest in Western Canada, I want to say, and they've also got a parking lot piece to it. So you've got and then so that's one individual project, and a rooftop on a roof such as a bungalow in West Edmonton is also one project. So there's a matter of scale there. I believe that we over the with the $48 million allocation indicated that if we needed to stretch it over more years, then we would. But we wanted to make sure the funds were available in the first instance to make sure that if, depending on what kind of uptake we had, that we could meet that demand. But we can stretch it over more years as well. Certainly PACE will move things along considerably, as will the economic recovery. And we know that through a combination of lower cost financing for these projects, awareness that they exist, and ability to invest, that we will see more uptake.
Okay, thank you very much. So, again, it was either earlier today or yesterday late. Mr. Denhoff was talking about the $1.4 billion in grants that have come out of Climate Leadership Plan. What I'm curious about is how you're measuring the effectiveness of the money that's going out. Are we measuring that in terms of CO2 reduction? Are we measuring it in terms of economic diversification, business taxes generated, jobs created? I guess what I'm asking, that's a substantial investment. How do we know that's effective? How do we measure what we deem, one, how do we define what success is, and then B, how are we measuring that? When do we anticipate seeing return on that?
So we do. We have for all of the funds that are expended out of the Climate Leadership Fund that relate to projects, we have a process that we go through that quantifies the expected GHG reductions from a project. So if you took LRT in Calgary or LRT in Edmonton, what are the expected GHG savings? But also in those instances, what are the expected advantages on a socioeconomic front? It gets people to work faster, more cheaply, enables people on a lower income to take jobs they might not have been able to. And what are the economic impacts, both from construction and are there any additional? So we do that kind of measuring on each of the major projects that goes through the climate change funding process. On the innovation funding, we approach it similarly to the way, so for example, the $80-odd million we're giving to emission reduction in Alberta, they put out a call for proposals, say on methane reduction. They then measure those proposals against their GHG reductions and a host of other, are they sensible, are they common sense, are they practical? They then give us an aggregate of what they expect their GHG savings to be on those emission reduction agency approved projects, and we load those into the overall expected GHG reductions for the province. The fastest way to guarantee you've had GHG reductions is through the purchase of offsets, obviously. So when a company in meeting its compliance obligations says to us, we've gone out, instead of giving ERA $10 million, we've gone out and purchased 10 million of offsets, we can claim those GHG reductions immediately because they've occurred. With ERA or with a major oil sands innovation project, we claim those GHG reductions as the project occurs, and we can actually measure them. But we make estimates on what we anticipate we'll get.
Okay,
yes, exactly.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. So you'd mentioned methane then.
Yeah.
And as you develop those regs, which you've referenced on page 69 in Key Strategy 1.1, I assume you're working with the Department of Energy on that, of course, as it relates to the overall methane. I think it's a 45% target reduction of methane over a period of time. What I'm curious about is when you do that, do you intend to make those regulations fairly prescriptive, as in, thou shalt use this piece of equipment and no longer use that piece of equipment? Or really is the target to be a fairly broad thing? Get from point A to point B, reduce methane emissions by this, by 45%. How you do it really is of no concern. Clearly, I would prefer the latter, where we're saying what we care about is the net reduction of methane. What we don't really care about is how you go about doing that. Is that the mindset as you develop these regs?
The Methane Reduction Oversight Committee, yes. I mean, it involves civil society and companies and the regulator. And, the approach is generally between those two poles of prescriptivity, and we need to be able to make sure that we're meeting our targets. And so there are some prescriptive ways that you can measure that you are meeting your targets through the appropriate measuring, monitoring, reporting framework. We have not, the regulator has not yet released the regulation. We anticipate that will be soon, based on the Methane Reduction Oversight Committee's advice to both of us ministers. We'll have more to say about that fairly soon. What we are seeing, though, is a number of reductions already.
20 seconds, apologies, just 10 seconds here, but I would agree with you that being prescriptive in terms of the targets is very important, but being less prescriptive in terms of the methods for achieving those targets would be, I think, a better approach. Allow industry to innovate would be my suggestion.
That's
as
been
part
the
of that.
advice.
Yeah, I would certainly encourage you to do that. Thank you very much.